Hey everyone, and welcome to my Echo reading vlog. At time of filming, Echo is going to start airing tomorrow on Disney Plus, and I'm so excited. I'm so intrigued by the character of Echo after seeing a lot about her in obviously Hawkeye and researching a fair bit about her as well for some blog posts to do with Hawkeye and Echo and everything else. So now I'm really excited to finally be reading some Echo-centric comics that I can find on Marvel Unlimited, and I thought I'd take you along with me because I usually do for most Marvel characters, and I just thought this would be a fun one because I don't really know that much about Echo, to be honest, further than what I learned when I was researching her. So what I thought I'd do is take you along with me and we can both learn about Echo at the exact same time. So with that, let's go all the way back to her original debut, which was in Daredevil in 1999, and let's get to know Echo. So I'm literally only into the first page of Daredevil, and by the way, this reading vlog will probably include a lot of Daredevil and a lot of Kingpin as well, because they're so tied into Echo's story, because Kingpin raised Echo and then also he sent Echo after Daredevil to kill him essentially. But this is the opening page, and if I can hold it up, there we go. And it goes round like this, essentially. You've got to try and read it in sort of like circular motions, and which is quite hard to do, by the way, on a tablet, because it likes to do that. So, bit difficult, so I was just kind of turning my head. Anyway, this is really interesting because this is what it's like in Matt's head and what he feels and what he senses as he's like trying to sleep and things. So he's talking about how someone has shot a BB hole through the window of his house, which means that the outside air punches through like a laser beam and things like this. And it's really interesting to see how Matt senses everything. That's really interesting. I know I'm supposed to be talking about Echo here, but I just thought that was really interesting and a really like cool way to sort of show Matt and like how he views the world and how he feels the world and things. I just thought that was really cool and I wanted to mention it. I do have a couple of problems with this. My first one is that they keep on using the R slur whenever they're talking about Echo, or at least they've used it twice now, which is obviously not okay, because even though this was written in 1999, that is still not a nice way to refer to someone who is like disabled or something. That is still not okay in any way, shape or form. So I really wish that wasn't there. There's also sort of like some racist overtones as well, I would say, when talking about like Echo's father, because Echo and her father obviously were Native American, so like her father's nickname was Crazy Horse, and obviously that can have some negative connotations there. So that's not the greatest thing ever either, but overall I am still quite enjoying this. I'm enjoying seeing like Matt and Echo sort of bounce off each other. That's quite interesting because at the moment Kingpin, who actually killed Maya's father, is saying that Daredevil did it to try and get like her to kill Daredevil, this kind of thing. So that's quite interesting. I am quite enjoying seeing them bounce off each other as Matt and Maya, and then as Echo and Daredevil. I'm finding all of that quite interesting. And yeah, there's some definitely bits that have not aged well, I'd say, but there are also some bits in here that I am quite enjoying. So we finally got into the iconic scene where Maya realises that it was actually Fisk who killed her father, and then she's gone there to kill him. And this is actually where that scene from Hawkeye where she shoots him actually comes from. It's from this specific comic. So it's really nice to finally get to this point, because obviously I knew it was a thing, because obviously I've looked this up and I've obviously seen this in like a few other people's like meta-analysis moments and things like this, but it's really nice to finally actually get to this point and actually see it for myself. I got interrupted before I could fully finish talking about that run of Daredevil. So overall I think it's a pretty good place to start with Echo. I mean, it is basically her origin story, so you can't really do better than that. Obviously it's also a pretty good place to start as well with Kingpin and also Daredevil as well. So if you're looking into reading some more about all three of those characters, it's a pretty good place to start. But obviously you do have to be wary of the use of the R slur, as well as the stereotypes around Native Americans. And then also there is a character with a speech impediment, and it's not done very sensitively in my opinion, so please be warned about all of that. So in conclusion though, if you are looking for a place to start, really there is no better place to start in my opinion, because obviously this is the beginning of Echo's journey. So start here if you can deal with those problematic elements, and I gave it 3 stars because it would have been 4, but those problematic elements just knocked it down a star for me. So from here I'm now going to go on to some other stuff. I would go on to the Brian Michael Bendis New Avengers as well as the Phoenix Song Echo stuff, but I do not want to read an entire Avengers run right now, or specifically 2 Avengers runs right now to get to those issues. So instead I'm going to fast forward to a bit where Daredevil and Echo are teaming up instead, just because I think that is going to be a better place to sort of kick back off again, because as far as I can tell it's not tying into a massive overarching series, and that just seems like the easier thing to do right now and more relevant to this vlog, and also it's what I've got time for, so that is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go start reading that and obviously update you when I've read something. Just for a bit of context as well, I have also just read the Who is Daredevil and Who is Kingpin on Marvel Unlimited. They're 2 Infinity comics, which are just essentially just giant scrolling comics essentially. They are actually quite short thinking about it, but anyway, it's basically like a quick start guide to who these 2 characters are, this kind of thing. And if you are wondering about those 2 characters and you don't really know where to start, but you also have access to Marvel Unlimited, I'd definitely go and read those 2 because they're pretty good explanations as to who these characters are, what their backstory is, why they are like they are, this kind of thing, and also why Daredevil and Kingpin are at each other's throats constantly. So if you are looking for something like that to do with those 2 characters, definitely check those out. There unfortunately isn't one for Echo though, so the 1999 David Mack run is currently your best option on that front, but I am now about to read the Daredevil annual by Charles Soule, so this may be a good one to maybe go for. I will obviously tell you when I've finished it. Daredevil annual read. This was a pretty short one actually. It's a 1 issue long series of stories, well 2 stories anyway, and the first one features Echo, which was really fun because we're dealing with the 2 of them having to team up against Ulysses Claw, who is in the comics basically a man made of sound. So he's using like sound waves and all the rest of it, and Echo can't hear them, so she's not affected, and she has to get Matt to help because he's obviously Daredevil, he knows New York that bit better, and also just because he's the other hero on hand and the 2 of them know each other quite well, so naturally she brings him in. And it's really interesting to see the 2 of them fight with each other. That was great, and like seeing them fight side by side, that was all really fun. And then the second one was not as fun because that is dealing with Melvin Potter, who, if I remember rightly, it's been like 5-6 years since I watched the Daredevil TV show. That is soon going to be rectified, hopefully. But Melvin Potter, who is the villain of this one, if I remember rightly, he's the one who makes Matt's suits in the original, if I remember rightly. I could be wrong on that though, so don't quote me on that. But in this one he has dissociative identity disorder and is doing the stereotype of being like the villain who is killing people, which is obviously not the greatest representation in the world, because obviously that is not true of dissociative identity disorder or anything else like that. I'm just like, why did we have to go down that route? I do not understand. It did not need to happen, especially considering this was written in 2016, which is a time where I hope that we were starting to change the conversation on mental health, and mental health equals bad guy and that type of idea. So I wish that had been different, but the first story was really fun. The second one not so much, and also didn't have anything to do with Echo, so there we go. But the first story did involve Echo and it was a pretty good one. I would say that if you've seen, like, I'd say She-Hulk, Black Panther, and also like Hawkeye, you'll know enough about each of these characters and you can just run with it. So if you want to do it that way, you can also start there if you want to maybe just ignore the second story. But yeah, that first one was pretty good, and I think I'm going to give this one 3 stars again, because the first story was a 4-star, the second one knocked off that star because of the bad mental health rep. So Elektra's also actually in this one, and we are dealing with a serial killer who is taking a literal pound of flesh and a spleen from their victims, and there is also a young girl wandering around with a strange heartbeat who seems to be able to destroy things with her voice. And Matt has described this as some Doctor Strange level weirdness, and I'm like, I love that he is now like a weirdness scale. So there's normal weird and then there's Doctor Strange level weirdness. I love that there's people in the Marvel universe who go, yeah, it's strange level weird, and I just find that really fun. I don't know, I just find that really fun. Daredevil and Echo was weird, I'm gonna say, because it deals a lot with like heaven and hell and like a creature called the Blind One and apocalyptic type ideas and things like this, while also flashing back and forth to the 1800s where ancestors of Echo and also Daredevil are teaming up together there as well to stop the Blind One. And it was alright, I guess you could say. I feel like it needed a lot longer for it to fully like go into these types of things and talk more about like Matt's faith, because obviously him being Catholic is a huge part of his character, and talking about things like this. I feel like that would have been a lot more useful. By the way, I apologise right now for the shadows that are going on right now. It's getting dark, I can't be bothered to get up and turn the light on, so I'm literally just using the light from my phone. Anyway, yeah, I feel like this needed a lot longer to like properly explore all of this. I will say I did enjoy Ghost Rider being there as well to like help out, because I always like a bit of Ghost Rider. But yeah, it wasn't the greatest thing in the world. But if you are looking for a Daredevil and Echo team up, then this is exactly that on the tin. It's exactly a Daredevil and Echo team up, and it's alright from that perspective, but I would have liked it to be longer to explore things more. So I think I'm going to give this one like a 3.5 star, I think. And now I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, about 7, I think, Infinity Comics to go. So I'm just going to quickly run through those, and then I think that'll be it for this vlog, because like I said, there really is not that much for Echo around. I wish there was, but there we go. Hopefully with the TV show and everything, it will boost her popularity and we'll get some more. But anyway, onto the Infinity Comics. So I've now finished as well the Infinity Comics, and these were pretty good. This was one big story told over 6 Infinity Comics, where we are following Echo as a solo character for the first time ever, and she is going back to the res to help some friends out. And it turns out that there is a young woman there who was separated from her family and given to a white family to raise years ago, and she's trying to change the past to make sure that that never happens. And we are dealing with all of that, and whether it's right to go back and change that thing, how that changes the future, and how Echo feels about possibly changing the past so Fisk never kills her father, and like how that would affect things. And I will say this was quite an interesting one. I'm glad that it was written, because obviously there is such a huge like historical problem, and probably now as well, I do not know much about what's happening now in terms of like native people in America and things, so apologies right now for my ignorance on that. But I know that there has been historical problems with like the 60s scoop, and then also taking like young native kids away from their parents and giving them to white families to raise and things like this. So I'm glad that all of that was covered. But this wasn't written by a native author. This was written by a Latinx author, which is great, because obviously that is not still like a white person and their white perspective on this. I'm glad it was still written by a person of colour, but I think this would have been done better by someone who was actually like native and had like some experience in this in some respects and things. So I think in that sense I would have preferred it to be done by a native author. But in saying that, Melissa Flores did do a good job in like writing the story sensitively, and then also like doing her research in this. But I still think it would have been better done by someone who like has experience in this. Also, the artwork was not my favourite. It looked like this, so the faces were just not my favourite way of drawing. But overall, it was a reasonably good read. But again, I'm going to give it 3 stars. So this has not been my greatest reading vlog experience ever, I won't lie, in terms of Marvel Comics. Most of them have been like a 3-star read, unfortunately. But I mean, if you do want to get to know Echo, I definitely recommend the Infinity Comics. I do definitely recommend the Daredevil and Echo stuff, and then also the 1999 Daredevil stuff. So there is stuff in there that is still a good read, but it's just not the greatest in the world, and it's definitely not my favourites. And it's definitely not going to make my favourites list of this year, unfortunately. But now that we are getting an Echo TV show and we're getting more focus on Echo, hopefully in the future this does mean that we will get more Echo comics that will be better and focus on her and all the rest of it, which is my big hope, because Echo is such a cool character. She's definitely got a lot of stories in her. I just wish we had some, because I mean the ones I have read have been interesting, but I feel like there is a lot more that we can do with this character. And I think that's where I'm going to leave the reading for this vlog, because there isn't really anything else to read, so all that's left to do is to watch the TV show, which is out tomorrow at time of filming, which is very, very exciting. So I'm going to skip forward to tomorrow and tell you what I think about the TV show, and then wrap this whole vlog up. So over to future me. And now I am future me and I have finished Echo, and I really enjoyed this series. What I really enjoyed about this was finding out more about Echo, because as I've mentioned in this vlog, a lot of her comics focus on Daredevil, to be honest, and you don't get to see Maya totally in the spotlight, with the exception of the Marvel Voices stuff. Apart from that, she's never fully in the spotlight. She's always sharing the spotlight with Daredevil, with Wilson Fisk, with people like this, whereas this show was entirely about Maya and her family, her ancestors, where she comes from, like who she is, all of this kind of thing, which I really enjoyed. It's something that definitely is needed for this character, because like I said, her whole character usually revolves around a man, usually, and not in a romantic sense, but just how she's working with them or working against them or whatever. So I'm really glad that this really fully focused in on Maya and her character, things like this. What I will say is that I do wish maybe this had been slightly longer, maybe not a full episode, but just some of the episodes to be a little bit longer to fully explore what her new powers mean and everything else, just to sort of get a little bit more from that. But apart from that, I had a really good time with this. And actually, in saying that, thinking about it, I would have liked just a tad bit more Kingpin, just maybe one more scene or two, just so you could really compare and contrast her relationship with him compared to her family. I think that would have been really good. But apart from that, it was absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed this. I also really want to commend Marvel quickly as well for really using sign language throughout this series, because they easily could have done what they do in the comics, which is have Maya speaking verbally, but instead she is signing the whole way through and everyone is signing back to her, which I think is really good, because obviously in the comics they went down that route of being like, oh, she can speak verbally and read lips, so you don't really see sign language that often in these comics. So I'm really glad they highlighted that throughout this series. I also really liked as well that they highlighted the fact that Maya also has a prosthetic leg, because Alaqua Cox, who is the actress who plays Maya, has a prosthetic leg as well. So I'm glad that was in there, and we were shown the whole way through, obviously she has a prosthetic leg, and it wasn't just hidden away or ignored. It was fully a part of her character, which I really enjoyed as well. I really enjoyed as well that this was done in collaboration with the Choctaw Nation, which is where Maya is from in this TV show. She's from a different nation, if I remember rightly, in the comics, but in the TV show she is from the Choctaw Nation, and Marvel really worked with the Choctaw Nation to get it as accurate as possible. So I'm glad they did not fall on stereotypes there as well. That was really good. I just generally really enjoyed this series. I really enjoyed the action sequences as well. They were all absolutely epic. I really enjoyed them. I love that this was a bit more adult, I guess you could say, and it was a bit more mature in the fight scenes and actually showing blood and things like this. It's something I've deeply missed within the Marvel Universe since all of the Defenders series were cancelled years ago now. Speaking of Defenders, Matt Murdock's scene was absolutely brilliant. I loved his scene so much. I always love seeing Daredevil, and it made sense for him to be in this, albeit briefly, because when you are talking about Kingpin and also Echo, you kind of have to bring in Daredevil as well, because they're so intertwined with each other. But I'm glad that it was in the first episode and then he left again, so we can focus entirely on Maya. But I'm glad we still got that little sort of reference to him. That was great. And overall, I just generally had a really good time. I will say that the ending slightly confused me as to the final battle between Maya and Fisk. I wanted to know a little bit more about what the hell just happened, but I'm sure that will be explored more the next time we see Fisk, which I'm really excited for, because that end credit scene is definitely bringing in Maya Kingpin, which is a really exciting part of Kingpin's story. So I'm really excited for that. But overall, I really enjoyed this series. I thought it was absolutely brilliantly done. My only complaint is basically it just needs to be that little bit longer, but apart from that, I had a fantastic time watching the series, and I highly recommend it. And I think that's where I'm going to leave this vlog. vlog. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me what you thought of Echo the first time you saw it. I'd love to know. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me a hand emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave the link as well down below to all of my social media if you want to check it out, including to the comic book section, which is filled with a whole load of stuff to do with Echo, Kingpin, all the rest of you, if you are interested in checking that out, as well as a link as well down below to my free reading journal digital template if you want to download that for yourself for free and check it out. Or if you just want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. But until next time everyone, bye!